Okay, we're getting ready to jump inside of a live stream and watch some live trading, but before we did that, I wanted to come on and just shoot this introduction to explain a couple of things. The first thing I wanted to explain is that this live stream that we're going to watch is a part of the Trading Live experience that I do every single day, Monday through Thursday, inside of TradeAct. Now, typically this stream is just for members only, but the stream that we're getting ready to watch, this was opened up to the public. And I wanted to make this announcement because I'm sure a lot of you aren't aware of this, but we do a lot of streams inside of TradeAct, and from time to time, we'll open them up to the public. This might be a coaching call where if you have any questions about futures trading, specifically volume profiling, anything along that line, you can bring it into the call, we can talk about it. We do pre-market preparations, and then we also do Trading Live experiences just like the video we're getting ready to watch. And if you want to be a part of that, and if you want to get the notifications for when those are open up to the public, all you have to do is either be a part of our free Facebook group or a part of our email list. I'm not sure which of that gets the notification. I think it's just the email list. Either way, I'll make sure before this video gets out that that gets sorted, and the link for that will be in the description. So if you want to be join that and have access to when these go public, to get the notification and to get the Zoom link, all you got to do is just join up and be a part of the list. Okay, the second thing I want to point out is what you're going to see in this video is a trade day, but really trade ideas that just did not work out. The market opened, we had a couple ideas of what we were expecting to see happen and what we were looking for. The market just did something completely different. And what you'll see here is looking for some ideas to shape up, shape up, shape up. They never shaped up and really got to the point of just proving this is not happening. And by the time we saw it wasn't happening, it was kind of too late to really do anything with it at the moment. And so had to pull back, get very patient, and just wait for something else to surface. And this just happens day to day. If you are on the screens in real life trading, there's a lot of times where the market just does something you're not going to expect. And that's okay. We deal with that. And the answer to that is not forcing anything. It's not rushing anything, but it's being extremely patient, letting something else surface up. And what you'll see is that kind of displayed in this stream. You'll also see a really good showcasing of the power of the profile. Because what we ended up doing is jumping on with a different trade idea surface. We ended up being able to jump on board with that. But if it wasn't for the profile, I wouldn't have had a level to lead against, and I wouldn't have made it happen. So you'll kind of showcase those things, and wanted to also make the announcement about the group. If you want to jump on and be a part of the mailing list. Sorry, I just lost my words. If you want to be a part of the mailing list and be a part of the future streams, I would love to see you in one in the future when we open those up as well. Okay, so with that little bit of an introduction, let's just jump right into the stream. I hope you guys enjoy. I hope you get something from this, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Trading Live experience. I'm Corbs, and today it is Thursday, May the 13th, 2021. Let's go ahead. We'll do a quick audio and visual check. It's good to be back in the building after the festivities that I was involved with yesterday. We'll check to make sure the audio and the visual is working, and then we'll jump right into the call today. If you guys are in the room, and if you can see everything, and if you can hear my voice, jump in the chat box for me, type in the number 9. Let's just confirm we're rolling, say good morning. We'll see who we have in the building, and then we'll jump right into today's call. Okay, good morning, George. Good morning, Barry. Good morning, Lucas. Good morning, Alberto. Good morning, Jamie. Good morning to everybody else. Got a lot of new names. Thanks for those confirmations, guys. And nice to see all of you in. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. Good morning, Robert. Okay, first off, to any new members of the community, if this is the first time hopping on a call or watching this on the replay, by all means, just a big welcome to you. Here's the structure of how this call goes, just so that we're all on the same page. Couple things to be aware of here: using the chat box to comment your trades, your thoughts, your questions. All of this is very strongly encouraged. Just please keep in mind that I'm only checking the chat box periodically. So if you say something, and especially if you direct it right at me and I don't respond right away, just know that more than likely it's no reflection of you or what you said. The majority of time we're in this room, I'm staring, trying to figure out what in the world is going on in these markets. And if I get to time to respond, I will. So feel free to use that chat box, but if I don't respond right away, just know that it's nothing to do with you. More than likely, it's just not on my radar. Now, the live trading experience is to educate and to showcase the process. This is not an outlet to just blindly copy trades. And as always, trading derivatives involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Okay, let's go ahead and jump right into it here. There are a lot of new people in the room just based on today, the crowd that we have. So a big welcome if you guys are just jumping in and you're not normally a part of the profiling method, if you're not a part of TradeAct. Really glad to have you guys out. We have quite a few things to get covered here in just a short amount of time before the open. So I'm just going to plug right along. If you feel a little bit overwhelmed by the pace, or if you feel a little bit lost, just know that that's probably normal if this is your first time in the room. So glad to have you. And then let's just jump through. You can ask any questions or anything if you need to. Okay, let's start off with looking at the overnight session that we're getting ready to come in on. We're fairly balanced in the overnight. We're a little skewed to the high side right now. The point of control has shifted up near those highs, just shifted up again slightly as I'm saying this. But overall, given where we ended the session yesterday, how we've behaved overnight, we've gone back and forth. We're fairly balanced, skewed to the upside. If nothing changes in the next several minutes, going to expect that this overnight high gets taken out, regardless of how the day shapes up. Would expect that this overnight high goes, right? Based on how that point of control has shifted near these highs and where we're slated to open. That'll be a very important thing to take note of. It's basically the only thing in the overnight session that I'm really worried about. All right, plugging into the previous session, looking at what exactly has happened here. This session I was not a part of. We had some graduation festivities with my girlfriend yesterday, and so I was off the screens, but we missed a real doozy of especially the morning action. Let's recap a couple things here. I think this will be important, especially since we didn't do a prep yesterday. Looking at this, we've been talking about this drop for a couple of days now. Okay, coming in, we had this daily engulfing candle to the downside, and then once we came in on that, a few very important things happened. What we did is we had this period of time where we established a value area, and we really went through testing outside value area high and low, and we really pushed outside of that value to the high side. On this push up, we had this short liquidation profile. We expect that these get taken back. In this environment right now, this is fairly difficult. The last time we saw a short liquidation profile, we did not continue to take that out. We actually just pushed higher to the high side. And that was during those 3 weeks or so that we just could not even put in 1 day to the downside. So this is a lot more normal behavior, seeing this short liquidation. That whole thing came back. Coming back in that next session, which was last Monday, on Tuesday, after we came back into value, drastically weak overnight session, opening up in a massive gap to the downside and basically going coast to coast on this value area. We talked about this. This was really only the second time that I can even remember as far as like in anywhere near the short-term time frame here. Going back several months, this is really the first time where we saw something negative shape up, get some real continuation down. And we talked about this. Listen, if this is going to get this follow through, what we're likely to see here, excuse me, is a return to close this gap below us. We had this gap left in. This is very likely to get filled at some point. During all this insanity to the upside, nothing's really looked like we were going to give out and go test those levels. This is the first time we're really starting to see that, and we're getting some really nice follow through. Okay, important to note, we are tapping up against the 49 EMA. This is the only moving average I really take note of. I have a couple that I'm testing some things with right now, but as of always, the 49 is just such a good barometer of what is a higher time frame trend, whether we're turning negative or not. So we're on the heels right now of potentially trying to do that, coming down, testing it yesterday. And the way that this is shaping up, where this is leaving us, this is going to put us in line with filling in that gap to the downside. Let's put this on so we can see this red area right here. The overnight low basically half filled it in. But this red area is that gap that we have left behind that just very likely we're going to get filled at some point. The way that this is dropping as well, if we just compare this to how when we broke out of this value to the high side, short liquidation that all came back, this is looking very different the way we've broken to the downside. Okay, this is not short liquidation. This is just a pure trend day to the down. And we're coming in right on the heels of this. All right, so where does this leave us? What are we expecting for today? You guys can reference the plan I've already posted, but the primary thing I'll be looking for here is some more to the downside, okay? Looking for this right in here as very likely to get targeted. Because of how we're opening, I'll expect that the overnight high gets taken out We're being very volatile in the overnight session. We're being very volatile the last 2 daily sessions, especially. So not seeing any reason for that to die off right now, expecting probably some more volatility today. If this ends up some kind of a trending day down, this might be a little hard to get on board with. But what I'll be looking for is for us to open inside of Friday's range, continue, or not continue, but try to push through this overnight high. What I'd like to see is us to push through that overnight high, get some failure, hold the overnight range, and then look to continue yesterday's action, continue that drop, taking out the previous low of day, and then filling in this gap to the downside. The overnight low and this half gap fill is going to be huge target. Filling it in on the other side is going to kind of be the extended target. Now, if this plays out, there's more to the downside that we could obviously see. But if we do fail around this overnight high and take this down, this is already a good 60 points worth of range. The daily range right now on average is not nearly that high. So that would be, way more than a hold. Even getting in and taking this to the previous low of day would be a beautiful trade. That would be profit target. This would all just be, an insane if that carried through. The secondary thing I'll be looking for is that we open up and we test this previous low, okay? Either way, I'm really expecting the overnight high gets taken out and the previous low gets tested. So in this situation, I'd look for an early morning drop down, maybe looking like it's going to be a trend down, something like that, looking like this is getting aggressive. Pop out, break through the previous low, come back, hold it, and then push higher on the day. So in this situation, I'll look for a break of this range of yesterday, come back and hold it. That hold is where the entry is going to be. Potentially, if this breaks out, there might be something to fade, but getting in on a retest of this previous range overnight mid, right in line with the close of the previous day, this would be the spot I'll look to enter in. After we break, we come back and we hold. In that situation, I'll look to target the overnight high. If we're going to just keep crunching this up, the next LVN that I'll be worried about is this 05, even. Potentially, there's some cutoff points, some just intraday resistance and support respectively. But the thing, if we're going to really start taking this back, I'll be looking at that 4105 as like an extended target. But similar to what we said on the way down, if there's an entry where this breaks out, holds here, and just takes us up to this overnight high, this doesn't look very far, but we're talking about 20 points worth of range, $1,000 per contract. Not that we're going to, hold full size this entire time, but this, of all things we're seeing right now, this little move right here, that's huge. Okay. All right. So those are the two primary things that I'm going to be looking for as we open up in today. Very excited to see how this day shakes out. We've been moving a lot. I could also see the potential here that we that maybe we establish a little bit of short-term balance. I'm not expecting it, but definitely need to be very open-minded today. I have a couple ideas that I think are very likely. But beyond that, there's probably like 6 or 7 things that could happen today. So I'll be very open-minded to what the market actually does, but I'll be looking for one of these primary things to shape up as the overall idea. Okay, that's pretty much all I've got for the preparations. Let's go ahead and just take a quick little break. I'll see you guys back here in just a few minutes. Take this time, grab your drink, do whatever you need to do, settle your mind, compare your own thoughts, and let's come right back as the US opens up at 9:30. I'll talk to you guys very soon. Okay, hello, welcome back everybody, or just a big welcome if you're tuning in for the first time. We're right at the US Open here, coming in hot. Looking for some volatility on the morning. We talked about this during the prep, so let's just see where these first few rotations take us. Like I said, either way, looking for that overnight high to get taken out in both scenarios here, or pretty much any scenario of what would shape up. And so any type of a pullback, especially going to be looking for the option to hit a quick long to take that into the overnight high, regardless of which one of these ideas shape up or play out for the day. Okay. Good luck today, everybody. Let's get these first few rotations underway, see what shapes up. Okay, that overnight high getting taken out. We talked about this. Given how that overnight profile shaped up, where that point of control was, how it was skewed, that overnight high was just very likely to go. In this situation, from the open, there was no pullback. We never crossed the open. So there was really, nowhere in the first 30 seconds here to just jump on board with that. This same exact thing shapes up in a different situation. Maybe we get a deeper pullback first. We start the morning with a quick little trade. Not what happened today. All right, looking right now as either something I'm not expecting to shape up for today or that first idea we talked about. Break through that overnight high, get the failure, hold that overnight range, and then continue lower. So that's what I'll be queuing in on for this. Going to bring it back inside the overnight range though. Okay, guys, first 3 minutes of the day here. Looking at the 04 for a potential short entry. Okay, the 04, we had an impact level here on the way up. Coming back down. If we can rotate this down a little bit and hold the 04, potentially lean against that for a short. Setting up for just that primary idea. Instead of getting in at that overnight high, getting in at a much, much better price. This also, very early in the day, we don't have a lot of information yet. This could be some type of a open drive situation, coming down, basing right at the open and just taking off, leading into a directional day to the upside, some type of a trend. Based on the context we have at this point, not seeing that as being a very likely thing, okay? To lean against that 04, I'd really like us to kind of push away from it first. We're just chopping around it, so there's no good spot to enter in on that at the moment. There's also not a lot of information right now to back up a short idea. So I'm not going to be too aggressive with it, but if it gives it to us, I'll look to lean against that. It'll be a good risk reward. Doing a good job of holding above it right now. Yeah, Max, I'm sorry. I didn't mean the 04. I meant the 84. Thank you. This 84 right here. Also, one of you old rascals, you newcomers, drew on my screen this green line right there. I don't know how to get rid of it. It doesn't matter, but easy there with the annotation tool. Okay, guys. Okay, come up in our first 5 minutes. The ES, listen, we've opened up. We've made 0 attempts, 0 effort to the downside at all. Very, very pushed to one side. We got high delta, high rotations, looking very aggressive to the upside. Okay. Potential here for an open drive situation. Still don't love that as an idea for today. Yeah, Sammy, I turned it off. I had it on when everybody joined. I gave you guys enough rope to hang yourselves, and look what you did to me. So yeah, it's turned off now. Good Lord. All right, guys, we are very early in the morning here. Definitely have the signs shaping up for a potential drive, potentially a trending type of day. I could see us getting some type of pullback and maybe balancing out, not being too aggressive to the downside for an additional day in a row now. But to open up and just trend higher today, even based on the news we had this morning, it's going to be very hard for me to get on board with that as an idea. Okay. The reason being that by the time this becomes obvious enough to where this is happening, a place to get on board will probably be very difficult. And being as it's just not something I'm looking for here, if this happens, I don't feel very confident in trying to join these longs right now. All right. But the other thing is too, there's not been a good reason to initiate a short either. So just sitting on the hands here, waiting for something to shape up. Yeah, Ars, just seeing that question come through. Yeah, I'm not gonna talk through that right now. Just gonna focus on the action here of how we're moving. The environment here for the live experience is not so much like Q&A and general topics like that. We do have other outlets for that, though. It's a really nice question. Just not the focus of this environment. But I can appreciate the fact that if you're just coming in, especially for the first time, it can be very confusing. But I'm sure even over the next couple, hours or so, it might become a little bit more clear. Okay, but nice question. Okay, guys, this is a tough spot right here. This is a very nice pullback to VWAP. If this was going to take off and get directional for the day, this would be the spot to enter in. Not going to try to grab the long here. And what this might turn into is just the missed opportunity for getting long. but leaning against the fact that this isn't trending. All right, watching this really closely, looking for a potential short entry. Okay, understanding there's still not a lot to back this up. So being a little bit careful with this, but looking for this to get back down below VWAP and continue to new low of day. Any kind of an entry here to the short side is going to have to be a very tight stop. Not going to fight this at all, just because of the likelihood that this gets directional for today. Okay, guys, we're getting coming up. It's still very, very early in the morning. I know we've moved a lot here, but this is still not giving much confidence in hitting a short. We're holding above VWAP very nicely. We're obviously so far above the open. Looks like the point of control is trying to shift to that 92.50 area. Really hoping that that doesn't happen. All right, guys, we're about 20 minutes into the session here. A little ways away from getting our first full half of an hour. Everything is so extremely bullish right now. Very high delta. We've respected VWAP 2 different times very nicely, just holding above it. Okay, this is all just lining up with directional trending type action. Got a strong drive off the open, so potentially an open drive open model here. And then just having 2 nice attempts and hold right at VWAP. Okay. We talked about in the call that if this gets directional today, it's going to be a little hard to get on board with to the downside or the upside, and probably even especially to the upside. Given the action we've had, especially the trending action yesterday, trending down yesterday, trending straight up today, wouldn't have seen that as like a likely play coming on this, okay? So as this was pushing up, the primary idea was to get that push up that would start to fail down. This second attempt that we had at VWAP here. Once that held and we moved off of that, especially that 6-point rotation up, started changing the idea that this is likely not coming down. Okay, don't have a good trade idea for jumping on board with this at the moment. Probably going to have to sit on the hands here and see how this develops, see how you guys are doing. Don't really have anything else as far as until we get up to the 41.05, another 5 points or so. Obviously the 41 even. We'll see how we react if and when we get to the 41.05. But for now, it's going to be pretty not interested with grabbing shorts at the moment. We'll see how we shape up at 10 o'clock here. I said this earlier as we were kind of getting that first pullback to VWAP. By the time that this is happening, getting on board is going to be difficult for this part of the morning anyway. And it's basically what we have shaping up here. Now that it's becoming, okay, this is really looking like a trend to the upside. A spot to get in, there's not much for that. Okay, so it's flipping the script though, not looking to hit the shorts, at least not in a meaningful way at the moment. If something changes, great. But for right now, this is really shaping up to be a trend day. Okay, so we're coming to the first full just half of an hour here. We've covered so much distance already on the S&P, going 30 points roughly, and straight up at that. We had one dip down, a good 7-point pullback. Other than that, we've just been holding or pushing this directionally. I have the 41.05 above us. Beyond that, Again, don't really have too much until we start pushing through to like the high of the previous session. Okay, didn't have an idea for trending to the high side today. If this ends up just continuing up with this uptrend, don't at this time of day especially, don't have a good idea for how to get on board with it exactly. So I'm going to keep a close eye on this, see if something shapes up. But as of now, still just going to be very uninterested in shorts at the moment. Okay, guys, as we're coming in, we got our first full half hour underway. The ES is just turning down for what, 30 plus points straight up for the first half of an hour. Another difficult thing about this now, even in terms of joining this action, is we've already covered just so much range as this is pushing through, getting very, very, very wide as far as the initial balance goes, especially if this starts, keeps pushing up the way that it is. Still not seeing any quit in this, not seeing any reason to try to do anything contrarian with this. Whew. Okay, guys, listen, we got the 4105 below us. I really hate this time of days. We get through like 10 o'clock, 10:30. This is a good time for us to have some type of a pullback. And, potentially this could be, kind of drastic, not changing direction at all, but just a pullback. So getting on board with this a little bit later in the morning as this is happening is a little bit tough. Doesn't typically get any easier as we get closer to 11:30. Strong push above this LVN at the 4105. Just pushed right through it. coming back, if we come back down and test that 4105, that's a level to lean against. I'll look to initiate a long on the 4105. We'll see how this looks when and if it comes down to it, but this would be something to get on board with. We had some insane prints going off just above that. So kind of coming back, retesting those levels, something like that could get on board with. But golly, if this just keeps pushing here. Won't have a plan with that, but it seems like we're accepting and liking these higher prices, building out the profile as we go, kind of jagged. You know, that's what we want to see from a profile that's trending, as well as just accepting the prices that we're being given. Okay, way too early to tell at the moment it happened, but you can kind of just see this jagged top here and this contrast, this nice taper that we had on the bottom. The first few seconds of the days that was shaping up, there was no way to read that at the time, but the other tougher thing about getting on board with this right now is I don't really have a good likely target to the upside. Going back to what we had going on first thing this morning, I think getting some continuation of yesterday's action was very likely. We got it in the overnight session. I was expecting to see it during the day session as well. That overnight high, was very likely to go. Some of these things at the time were just very likely to happen. Now, the overnight level is gone. We've already covered so much range. Not to say that this is going to stop, and we would expect, if this is going to trend, the initial balance high breaks, as well as some continuation on that. And that's just what I'm going to have to be leaning against at this point. Makes it a little bit less comfortable to get in, just because that confidence of knowing that there's a certain place that we're very likely to head. I don't have that if we end up getting in on a trade here, okay? But either way, getting in on that 4105 is not bad. Potentially not entering in on the first touch of it. So we'll see what happens, again, if and when we get down there. Already pushing 40 points on the day. Okay, got finger on the trigger, ready to enter in at the 05, potentially even like the 0550, 0575. I'd really like closer to 04. Okay, as this was dropping down, made the statement, probably not going to enter it on that first touch. Want to see how we react to this level. Would really like to see us even break it down slightly. So just keeping an eye on this, being fairly picky with the entry. Rotating off that extremely fast both times. Okay, looking for the entry here. All right, going to be quick to mitigate some of the risk on this. Taking off here. This more than likely probably is not going to shape up to be an extremely straight shot or an easy hold, especially since the initial balance is getting ready to set. Not getting ready, we got a good 20 minutes. Wanted to, you can see this on the profile, this area where the point of control was likely to shift. Kind of getting out in there as that was hitting that level is just a likely spot for us to revisit. Mitigated some of the risk on this. Now looking for, going to have to front run the high of day. I don't see this just running through the high again. So if we get up to about the 10.50, going to have to scale something there if we can get that. If we just keep pushing through, all the better. But if we start hitting that 41.10, can't push through, going to secure something else and then look for the rest. The target above is the 41.22. So we're not close to it at all. I just can't imagine this is going to be a terribly easy hold. Okay, heads up on this 10 area right in here. Looking to scale. Okay, scaled out as we're pushing into this. Okay, not a bad idea to just take this trade off right in here. I'm going to hold this remainder. Target's 41.22. Okay, a little unconfirmed double top going on at the high of day right now. Not going to expect that this holds. Damn. Okay, guys, as we're coming in, we still got a good 15 minutes to the initial balance is set, getting really choppy here around these highs. We talked about this at the time entering on this trade. Tough time of day. This is going to be more than likely a tough hold. That's why getting those scale outs kind of early on, we ended up pushing through that high a day and then getting very choppy. But I could have seen this chop could have just as likely happened before we even pushed higher. So ideally, holding that second scale out for a little bit more would have been ideal, but the likelihood of this kind of getting wonky right in here erred on the side of just securing that in. And here's what likelihood that this continues higher is just very, very high. The initial balance is getting ready to set. We never expect that first hour range is going to be the entire range of the day. So if this is going to extend out that range, is it more likely that we extend this to the high side or that we extend this to the low side? Today, trending up, it's more likely we extend it to the high side. So to be in on a long while this is happening. Now, could we drop that back down and test the 97, head to VWAP before we head back up? Very likely. Or I don't know about very likely. It could happen. So this is tough. The odds of this continuing higher are just very likely. So for that reason, trying to hold on to this remainder and see as far as where we're heading above, breaking that initial balance, anything close to the 22 would just be ideal. It's also not that close. It's another 10 points above. So, it's worth taking on the risk at the moment. And these are just kind of the tough decisions that we have to make. here's what I'll plan on doing if this gets a flush to the downside. In at the 005, this could drop down below the 41 even and still not be in the red on this trade because we scaled out. The original entry is at that 05 area, the 0550. But the break even on this because of that scale out is below the 4100. If this gets a pretty drastic move that takes us all the way back to that original entry, I'm going to take the trade off at the remainder, just secure in what we have. The reason being that if this gets back to the 05, I'll expect kind of a break of it, even if it's just a quick break. So what I'll look for, if this flushes down, take off the original where we got in, any kind of a breakdown, be looking to re-put that long back on. But if it breaks through that 05 and just flushes, I don't want to sit there and hold it if something really screwy starts to happen. And then obviously if this just keeps pushing higher, the initial balance high break is where I'll be very happy taking it off. And if that ends up pushing us and we can hold something closer to 22, all the better. Okay, got about 7 minutes to initial balance breaks. I mean, holds, sets, forgive me, sets. Okay, it looks like our third touch at the high of day. Again, not expecting that to hold. Okay, keeping a close eye on this as we're attempting to push through and continue this high. Okay, looking to take this trade off. Okay, out. Okay, ideally, we kind of held that range till the initial balance set. The initial balance set is just in a couple minutes here. We already pushed through out of that range pretty tight. We stalled out at least. This pullback here that's happening about 2.5 points so far is just, that was likely to happen. And given the time coming in this initial balance, these are the decisions we have to make, guys, where back here, as we're stalling out, we're still 10 points away from the target. This is, this is a situation where we need to let this thing through and let this thing play out. Pushing up into here, we got the 41.20. I would have been very happy taking off at. 41.19 was building up a lot of liquidity. Coming up into here, we're just now a couple points from that target. And obviously there's a lot on the that we have at risk at this point. And just understanding that pullback was likely. Taking that off at where we did, locking in about $900 on this trade, I think about 850. Okay, not crushing this day, not crushing this trade. Today the market came in, the first, the second. This would have been like my fifth idea of what I would have expected for today, that we just open and just start trending higher. And a couple important things to take away from this. I'm going to be more than likely done for the morning. This was just trying to take advantage of some of this move coming in to break that initial balance, potentially heading to the 41.22. But it's a good chance we'll get a little bit wonky here. But to talk through a couple of points on this, this is a very good example of just the very much the power of what the profile tells us. Okay, the profile in itself is just information. It's not enough. You got to have some methodology with it. But understanding as this was shaping up, the idea that this understanding opening models, understanding how the profile was developing, the likelihood for this to get directional was there. Not what I wanted to see, not what I was expecting, but we couldn't discount it. So as these shorts were potentially surfacing, I was very cautious about them, was being very picky. And even though it didn't, because my ideas were wrong this morning, it didn't put me in a great idea to take advantage of it. It still kept me out of doing something very stupid on the way up. And then just being patient, waiting for something to surface, not just chasing prices at any random level, understanding that when this second retest happened, that was the miss there, and other than that, there was no good levels to lean against. There was nothing to trade until we hit this LVN. Another thing that you don't see if you're not using the profile. This LVN comes from a higher time frame. Okay, this is the 41.05 right there. So on this higher time frame, that's the cutoff point. That's where that level comes from. And it just translates over to this chart. But either way, breaking above that LVN, coming right back, retesting it, put together for a decent trade to at least take on with this. Kept the size very small, 3 contracts. Kept the first 2 scale outs a little tight, got a decent scale out, on the exit of that trade. Okay, so it's 10:30. It's still very early in the morning. There's still, a lot of range. What we would expect is that this breaks the initial balance high. And then even the kind of the normal range extension would put us up around the 41.30. Okay, this is also another LVN, 31. Right in line with the high of the previous session as well, kind of just above that. So all of those places are fairly likely to go to the high side. I'm not exactly sure about the re-entry on this, where to get in or how to take this up, but definitely not interested in doing any shorts. If I did anything to the short side, it would have to be later in the day probably, and really centered on controlling my risk, scaling out very soon, treating it like a scalp, for sure. Okay, but with that being said, I'm probably going to be done for the morning. Not done for the day, but this is, kind of played out. The idea of leaning against this 0150 to keep the push going higher, it played out. I didn't take it to full target, but that idea is over for me. Now, what's going to happen is either a potential additional long entry, which I don't see shaping up before this breaks the initial balance. The initial balance just now set. Looks like it's going to break right now, or a potential shorting opportunity. For a short to set up, it would take a long time because we'd really have to change some things, and not seeing that being very likely. Okay, you see, we just broke through that initial balance high. So far in the first hour, we've covered an insane amount of range. We're already pushing 45 or so points on the day. Overnight levels are gone. Initial balance is now gone. Do I see this continuing higher? Sure. How likely is that? I don't know. It just as likely as, listen, we're moving up today and it's not seeing any weakness yet, so probably this will continue. But even my level of confidence entering in on this is just very different when you don't have very likely targets and specific things that you're trying to reach. Just kind of getting in with the move and trying to get more of it. It's not a trade idea that I like. That's why directional trending type days are fairly difficult for me. And that's what will happen on a day like today, kind of doing what I can to just take advantage of it. But on a session like we had a couple of days ago, where we put in that neutral day, that was the day to really rack up some serious cash. Okay, I'll switch over to you guys. It looks like a really, really quiet in the chat box. Not seeing anything. Since we are, I'm going to be done for the morning. I'm going to take a good break, kind of get off the screens here. Any type of questions or anything you guys want to talk about, feel free to shoot that in the chat box. And if not, we'll just wrap it up for today and be done with it. Amit, you're very welcome. What's up, Sammy? Is the setup possible in TradingView? It is not. No, there's several things that you just can't get from TradingView. TradingView is very nice for what it is, but it's very limited because it is not a professional grade charting package. It just absolutely isn't. It is meant for passively kind of swing trading probably. If you need to drill in and get the level of information and details that we're seeing here, you can't get this on a TradingView. It's not you're not going to get that, unfortunately. Yeah, do I ever scalp? Definitely, 100%. There's a few using what we call micro composites. Once the range gets established, if we're having some kind of balancing out, it provides a lot of good scalping opportunities. So what will usually happen is we come in during the day and then the market's really got something to do. So normally, we have some plans ahead of time. If one of those plans shape up, we just trade it. If the plans like today just go out the window, we just look to see what we can do based on what we know about the profile, what we know about how the day's shaping up. Just look for something to do. Then usually after that, these ideas are done. It's time to just let the market finish out what it's doing and then coming up with a new batch of ideas. So yeah, a lot of short-term stuff surfaces for sure. Not so much in the morning though. It's a little more rare. We almost had a short scalp idea shape up this morning. If you remember where we opened, we talked about that overnight high being very likely. If we would have opened and dipped down to this HVN, dipped down to the overnight point of control, I would have looked to initiate a long to take that up just to the overnight high, okay? Because of the range that we're in right now, the volatility, that doesn't probably seem like a scalp, but it would have been a short time frame idea of just getting in and getting out. But yeah, scalping is definitely what I'll look to do. It just depends on what the trade is. How early in the day can you lean against VWAP? On a directional day, you can lean against it very early. And honestly, so here's kind of the deal. I was very against the idea that this was just trending up today, so it kind of wasn't really on my radar. But if you're trading the S&P specifically, look for this. It will show up in several variations. So this isn't something you can just kind of like be half cocked with. But if you understand some context and you can understand when we're setting up with an opening type that is lending to be directional and potentially a trend surfacing, this is a very repeatable pattern that we see. A lot of times it's a break of VWAP that's a little bit more extreme than what we saw here. This kind of one ticked below VWAP, but break VWAP by a few points, move higher, come back and retest. Sometimes it happens maybe like on this move, boom, boom, like a lot quicker. But there's like this test and retest of VWAP that happens very early in the session on a directional type day. Not every time we get directional, but it's very common. So the context is always the most important thing. So just because we touch VWAP a couple times, I'm not going to enter long. But if I have a reason for thinking that this is a trend early, and maybe that's one of my primary ideas, and I see something like this would be a very, good thing to enter on. Not that first touch, the second touch. And I was fully expecting this was going to break down that second touch. Once it held and that got like that 6-point rotation up, I knew I missed it, and I knew that this probably wasn't coming back after that. But specifically for the S&P, this is something I look for. Okay. Let's see here. Sarah, first time trading live, the micro 16.25 points on a trend day. Glad I didn't fight against the trend. Thanks. Yeah, honestly, it's this is a day, and for before profiling especially, I'm very contrarian by nature. This is why trending days are typically difficult for me, and I don't do the best on trending days, is because when the market's doing something, I always want to do the opposite of it. So when we are being some type of a range bound, especially like a neutral day, that's just like my bread and butter. And the profile and understanding how these shape up and the method here, it's really stopped me from being in a spot where I just fight this action all day long. Because this is very normal. We kind of move higher, balance out a little bit, move again, balance out a little bit, move again. And every time we start to bounce out a little bit, I just, this is the turn. Let me catch it. It's a very poor way to trade. And it's what I did for a long time. And trending days used to just kill me every time. But excellent job, Sarah. Really, really, really nice. Thanks for the kind words, Sarah. S. Hill. Yeah, this is a nice question. What do you think is a reasonably consistent target as far as like a profit target for a newbie? Somebody who's kind of just reached that level of consistency. I'll say this, because of the beauty of futures contracts, and you can see this, there was one trade taken today. This is a very slow day. Even though the market was being very aggressive here, there wasn't a ton for me to do, kind of missing this early on. But just being in this one trade, pretty much taking this, one move up, just kind of capturing a very small portion of this day. This is something we talk about a lot. You don't have to crush the market. I mean, we're up $850 on the morning, right about that 16 points, a little over. And you don't have to crush the market. You don't have to catch the tops and the bottoms to make a living and to do this very well. You don't even have to be spread out all over the place looking at a bunch of different things. This is one product. We didn't use a lot of size. Granted, the volatility, helped us today. But with the S&P specifically, if you were to go through this trading futures, just trading this one product, the spot you want to be in is having like minimum a 3 contract size. So if you're using micros, 3 contracts. If you're using full size, 3 contracts. And hitting around that 10-point mark is kind of like that level of consistency. If you've reached consistency, if you're starting to perfect this and to figure out your method, and then also to figure out yourself enough, around that 10 points a day is like that's the spot to be. And that translates into about $400 or $500 a day. If you're on the full size, and then a tenth of that if you're on the micros. But as far as points go, that's kind of the place to be right on the side of consistency. Yeah, if you're using if you can't use a chart like this, if your charting package doesn't provide it, something like a 1 minute would probably be very close, I'm sure. It's a very drilled in, very noisy chart. You don't want to spend all your time looking at this, but it's very granular, which is nice when you're looking to enter in on this, seeing the size of these rotations as they happen. You know, that same exact move, you just don't see it on a 15-minute the same, you know, or even on a 3-minute really. But drilling in on this, I find it very nice. But you just don't, it can get very noisy, okay? Let's see here, Lucas. I was expecting a pullback. Instead, yeah, I'll say this. If you are, yeah, let me say this. Just kind of reading through your comment there, Lucas, I would be a little careful about getting too granular on the intraday profile, okay? So the HVNs and the LVNs that I'm looking at, even this HVN right here, this LVN right here, these levels are not coming off of the intraday profile, right? What they're coming off of is a very zoomed out profile. That's where these levels are coming from. And so one thing that you don't necessarily want to do, there's certain things of the intraday profile that you want to take into account. But just seeing, for instance, at this 4102, we traded here some. Don't bank on that being revisited necessarily, right? It lines up right today with VWAP, so maybe the likelihood of it getting retested is more likely on a situation like today. But as far as I wouldn't get too hung up on the developing profile of the day, drawing leaning against those levels too much. Even this 4105, it kind of is a LVN on today's profile, but that's not why I traded against that. Okay. So I can't say don't use the levels at all on the intraday profile because they're obviously very important, but I would, if you're still figuring this out, I would stick to higher time frames, those composite charts to get my levels from, and then not look so much on the intraday. All right. It's a tough thing for me to say just blanketly because there are certain things on the intraday that are important, but the whole trade today had nothing to do with those intraday levels. I hope that makes sense. Randy, is there any reason this method wouldn't work well on trading the options? No. Beautiful. 100% beautiful. I think here's the deal. There are so many things we can do to make money in the markets. There's no shortage of opportunities here. But we will never make money if we know a little bit about a bunch of stuff. I can tell you this, the being able to, whether or not you thought this was good trading or not, but being able to say some of the things I've said about, this is looking to be a difficult hold, getting out when we made this push here and not writing it down for that dip. These types of things are not just random calls or me saying things. This is just after so many years of trading the S&P, like I know this product really well. Not to say it doesn't do crazy stuff that I never see coming and doesn't kick my butt all the time, but there's a certain level of mastery you get when you stick with something and you really narrow your focus. And every business is like this. You start a business and you just try to have like the widest reach possible. You're never going to get any traction. You want to build a business, you got to get really narrow. Do the thing that you do really well. And so for me, it was futures. It's the S&P. It was kind of this path. But down the road, I would really like to, the next evolution for me is probably, I have some scaling stuff that I'm in the middle of, but the next thing will be longer term, a little bit longer term trades with options. Yeah, I love the idea. I'll be doing the same exact thing with this, and it'll just be holding stuff out. So even for instance, the drop that we had over the last couple of days, we talked about this in our preps, like we were looking for this to really work our way down. And instead of just taking advantage of that intraday, doing some plays that hold that while the thing is happening, it'll be a lot of great opportunity there. Thanks for the comment, S. Hill. What is the look back period for your composite profile? This one here is going back quite a ways. It's going back to 2020, 0902, September 2nd, 2020 is where that's starting from. Yeah, Arun, I've already covered this, but that LVN was from that very large composite profile. Yeah, the one that went back, all that time. Sammy, are there plans to add new content to your course in the near future? Yeah, so kind of, I'll say interesting. And if you've been around TradeAct for a little while, there was kind of an evolution of the not necessarily being specifically futures or specifically volume profiling. Once we made that transition, the profile method that you'd be going through is really the first version of that product. And so since we've rolled that out, we do so many live streams here. The Trading Live experience every day, the mentoring meeting we're going to have in a few hours, the coaching calls every day. Sometimes, like on Tuesdays, there's 3 streams that we do. And through the last several months, just doing these streams and just getting so much feedback on certain things, I already have a good list of things that I want to incorporate into some new trainings. Just this isn't important to talk about, but we have I'm working right now on getting some entry-level products out for the volume profile. I realize kind of what we do here at TradeAct is kind of aggressive. And I've talked with a lot of traders that it's not the move for them. Like they're so unsure about what they should be trading or what they should be doing in the markets. To try and come on and be a part of TradeAct, it's just like, it's too much. It's not the thing. I don't know if it's what they need to do. They don't know if what they need to do. And it's a commitment to do this. And so we're working on right now having something that is just very entry point, because there's not good books about volume profile. There's not, there's not much out there for starting. So I'm not going to write a book, but anyway, we're working on some entry level stuff right now. And then as soon as I'm done with that, my focus is going to switch to a couple community upgrades and then a new profile method development. Yeah. I don't know why I said all that about it, but all that to say yes. S. Hill, I've heard not to add trend days that happen above values in your composite profile. Is that wrong? Yeah, I would say wrong. It takes commitment, a lot of effort, but for me, been here 6 weeks and it's been totally worth it for me. Thank you, Gordon, for the kind words. Let's see here. Sammy B, thanks. Cool. All right, guys, listen, we're going to go ahead and wrap this one up for today really early. So it's nice to just kind of get off the screens early. As far as what's happening next year, I'll be expecting more to the upside for us to revisit at least that 20 level above. It's not likely enough to where I'm putting a trade on at the moment. What I'll be doing though is I'll be getting off the screens, taking a good break. When I come back, and here's why to come back. The ideas for the day, it's just done. Like this is a trend day up right now. So either this is just going to keep pushing and we're going to kind of see how far this thing goes, or we're just going to level out for the afternoon. Either way, or this changes direction and we break the trend. So whenever we come in on the morning, after we get to a certain point, kind of the main ideas are done. The key levels are usually broken. And now it's just a matter of seeing if something's going to change or how much of continuation we're getting. So to be able to step away from the screens, have a break, come back with some fresh eyes, and then come up with some new plans based on what's happened, that's what I'll be waiting for, because I just need more information now. It'll be a little bit before anything changes. So I'll take a break. I'll come back later in the day, probably even, I'll keep having Delight. We all know about that. If that shapes up, I'll trade that for sure. And outside of that, probably closer to like 2 o'clock, coming back and seeing what's shaped up, and then looking to see if we can take advantage of it. All right. Okay. Be well, everybody. Thanks for coming out. And especially to those of you who are guests and just here for today. It was really great catching up with you. Glad you guys could come out. And then to all the regulars, especially those of you in the method, we'll have the mentoring meeting here in just a couple hours. So if you need anything, make sure you just get that submitted, and I'll see you guys there if you can make it out. Okay. Be well, everybody. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Happy trading, guys.